My views and opinions expressed in this video do not express those of my ex-employer.
Hey friends, welcome back to the World Wide Web. This is a part 2 of a 2-part video. The first part of this video was about the good side of working on a cruise ship. Now for this part, it's the not so good parts about working on the cruise ship and also things I'd like to see change within the industry, specifically for employees. There is always going to be positives and negatives about any workplace. I really don't want the negatives to detract from the positives from the last video though. The job itself, working on a cruise ship, is inherently amazing and it's for the people that don't want to work in an office 24/7. But with all that said, there are still some things that need a bit of improvement, which I'm going to be outlining today. Before we start, click the subscribe button, click the like button, why not comment something? Be a part of the community, be a part of the Mikey D-sters, or as this beautiful person commented, be a part of the D-list. I don't know if I love that one or hate it. Without further ado, it is time for the not so good side of working aboard a cruise ship. Whilst you do make these lifelong mates that you'll be in contact with for the rest of your life, there's going to be some people on board that you work with that you don't necessarily get along with all that well, and that's life. The only problem is you're living with these people 24/7 aboard a vessel that's quite large, but not large enough that you're going to be able to ignore them completely. You're going to be working with some real bags, and you're going to have to suck it up. Travel is phenomenal. But you aren't like the guests. You are working 7 days a week, and going out in the ports can sometimes be hindered by your workload within a day, which I'll explain right now. In the last episode I did talk about a life in the day. I'm going to do it from a slightly different perspective. Keep in mind, I was an entertainer and a DJ aboard the cruise ship that I was on. So the night before, you're up late DJing in the club till about 11:30, and it's been a 10-hour day already and you're pretty wrecked. Your friend is doing a going away thing in the crew bar and you want to see them off, so you head to the crew bar for a drink. Before you know it, it's 12:30. You get back to your room, you have a shower because it's the Bahamas and you're sweaty. And by the time you actually get to sleep, it's around 1 a.m. You have to wake up at 6 to go to the gangway duty, which is seeing the guests off the boat and making sure they have ID cards with them. And by the time gangway duty is done, it's around 9:30. You're tired, you want to sleep, you've also got laundry to do, and you're hungry. You're now faced with a dilemma. Do I go out for the day knowing full well I've got to start work at 2? Or do I catch up on sleep? And do I get some food into my body? At the start of the contract, it's an easy decision. You just go out in port. You've got this abundance of energy that just keeps on replenishing over and over again. But as the contract goes on, that energy starts to wear out a little bit. And slowly the decision to go out in port becomes a decision to stay in, do your laundry, and just chill out for a bit before work again. It's unfortunate, but that's the cycle. Touched on crew parties before, and they are absolutely bananas, but again, they're a part of this cycle because if you have a late shift of work that goes till 11:30 and then you want to go to the crew party till about 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you better believe you've still got to wake up the next morning and go back to work again, just fueling that cycle. Music. You learn about all new genres of music like we talked about in the last episode. I've learned about Latin music and I've fallen in love with it. Back home, where I am in Australia right now, when I DJ, I normally play house and old school party throwback music. That's my bread and butter and I love it. Where I was DJing from out of Miami wasn't the case for them. They love hip hop, rap, trap, R&B, that kind of vibe. I like a certain style of that music, but I'm not a huge fan of the Cardi B, Meg Thee Stallion, new age stuff. That's what they wanted consistently though, so that's what I had to play. So you're sacrificing a bit of the creative element for it. Don't get me wrong, there's parts of that genre that I absolutely loved and I definitely got to mix those in as well, but just letting you be aware that it's not going to be just an absolute free-for-all in the DJ decks where you get to play whatever music you want. At the end of the day though, I was so lucky to be able to DJ to an international audience, and now I can claim I'm an international DJ, so step aside, Pitbull. Pitbull's not a DJ. You share rooms, which isn't a big deal. I talked about in the last episode, I loved my roommates, but it was a little bit of an interim period I didn't talk about in the last episode though. That was when Jake left and Josh was just about to be coerced by me to move into my room. I had another roommate in the middle of that. I only had him for a week and he seemed like a lovely guy, except he didn't want to talk to me at all. He was just a fill-in roommate. They cycle around the cruise ship until they find them a permanent room. He didn't talk to me at all. It was very uncomfortable. It made my little home that I had not so homely. I was very lucky to have Jake and Josh as my roommates, but for some people, they might go the entire contract not having a roommate that they love, and that's just the reality of it. You can ask for a change though, if you find someone that you're friends with and you manage to find a room you can move in together, but that's not always going to be the case for you. That's it for the things that I didn't like about working on a cruise ship, but there are some things that I'd like to see change as well, which are really important to me. Of course, you're there to work. You're there to work a lot. You know you're there to work 7 days a week. In my contract, as I stated before, it could be up to 70 hours a week. I'm well aware of that. I don't agree with it though. I think crew morale would be boosted exponentially if every crew member either weekly or fortnightly had a day off. Just one day off where they could sleep in the morning, go and do their laundry, go work out at the gym if they're lucky enough, go out in port, and then maybe that night they can go to the crew bar and have a couple of drinks, have a little bit of a boogie, replenish their energy stores for the next day. You're gonna get so much more out of an employee when they've got that one day to recuperate instead of just running them thin for the entirety of their contract. Wi-Fi. Not only is the connection pretty bad most of the time, but we've got to pay for it, which is understandable, except the rates are just too damn high, okay? I don't care about me, but what I do care about is the crew members that were paid less than me, that left their families to come work aboard a cruise ship to then send their families back money. That's already hard enough as it is, but then to have pretty dodgy Wi-Fi that's pretty pricey is not cool. You've also got to factor in the fact that crew members work on all holidays. It's a year-round job. So on Christmas Day, you better believe I was hosting a trivia in the morning, and New Year's, you better believe I was DJing in the club well past the countdown. I think the best thing that the cruise ships can implement is free Wi-Fi for every employee so they can contact their family. It's not a huge ask, but I think it's a great thing that the cruise ship companies can do to show the employees, hey, we really care about you, and this is our little thank you for doing such a great job. Bam. The alcohol limit. Cruise ship companies have implemented an alcohol limit to limit the amount of standard drinks an employee can have in their system at a given time. If you are caught with more than the limit in your system, that is it. You are terminated on the spot. You will go home at the earliest convenience. That is it. There is no warnings. It does vary from company to company, but from what I've gathered, all the limits are pretty darn low. It might seem pretty petty for me to complain about this, but when you're working 7 days a week for some pretty large hours, you get a lot of solace in going with your friends to the crew bar and having a couple of drinks and letting loose a bit, having a bit of a dance. When there's a limit on that, and when that limit can terminate your sole source of income, that makes you feel a lot less comfortable in the place that you've got to call home for the next 6 to 8 months. You don't want it to feel like you're back at school where every decision is made for you. That feels more like a prison than a workplace or a home. In short, let the people drink. If the employee goes overboard and drinks too much and they are unable to work the next day, then yeah, get rid of them. The contract lengths. The minimum is around 6 months and they go up to about 8 or 9 months. That's a really long time at sea, and for a lot of people from all departments, you can experience burnout, especially from the middle towards the end of your contract. I think a shorter contract of around 4 months would get the best out of the employee for the entire duration with no fizzle out. The food. I know so many people are so curious about what the employees eat. The one positive I can take away from it was that the company did their best work to make sure we had different food every single night. Occasionally we got some really good stuff, and we also got some themed nights as well, which was really funky. It made people feel like the food from their home was coming into the crew mess, which was awesome. But here's a rapid fire of the things I didn't like about the food for the employees. The chicken always had bones left in it, even in rices. What's the deal with that? Sometimes we just didn't have vegetables. There were just no steamed vegetables there. And for my friends that were vegetarians or vegans, that was an awful night for them. Oil. So much oil was used in the food, it was nasty. In short, put good food in your employees and you're gonna get the best out of them. Not saying we never got good food, but I think across the board it could be lifted. Now, as much as I hated on the food, some of my fondest memories were sitting in the crew mess with my friends complaining about the food. So I'm thankful that the food brought us together, and I really do miss eating with my friends nightly. Would I recommend working on a cruise ship to you? Yes, I would. Despite everything I've said today, 100% made me a drastically different person and a better person, I think. I learned the value of working my ass off, working with some really talented people. I worked with some amazing cruise directors, and being able to watch them on stage and just taking mental notes of what they're doing was something I just wouldn't get anywhere else. And that's the same for any other department. You work with some really talented people and some really kind people. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I appreciate you for being here for this long. If you've got a friend that would find this interesting, please share that to that friend. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like it. I do lots of videos. A lot of the time, they're not like this, but I think you'll still enjoy them. Thanks for being here. Mwah. Appreciate ya. Catch you next time.